have arrived at Scott Carson's Note Closers podcast. Today we have a particularly lovely team of co-hosts keeping the seats warm while Scott and Stephanie make their way across Europe. With me today are fellow note investors who also happen to be ladies. Pattie Pett from Ader Financial, Katie Moten. Hey, Katie Moten of Coletta Street Capital, and Gail Villanueva of Noteworthy Investments. Hey, girls. Did you see Scott and Stephanie's photos yesterday at the Harry Potter and Globe Theater? Was that not the cutest thing? Stephanie driving the little luggage trolley into the wall.
I'm still curious how Stephanie got sorted into. Does anyone know?
How she got what?
The sorting hat. She had the sorting hat on.
Oh, which one she got into?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Gryffindor.
Which one?
Gryffindor.
That's my house. Yay!
Well, that's the coolest, but Hufflepuff is kind of the cutest, I would have thought.
It is, yeah.
Possibility too. So, well, like any group of girlfriends, we're going to forget pretty soon that anyone's watching us, and we're just going to end up dishing with each other. But before I lose all control, I'd like to just give everyone a chance to take a turn and tell us a little bit about themselves. So ladies, in 2 minutes, please say what you've done so far in notes, what your big, audacious, hairy goal is. I just learned that from Pattie and Chris yesterday on the podcast. And then tell us something we'd be surprised to know about you. So Katie, why don't you go first?
Ooh. My name is Katie Moten, and I'm with Coletta Street Capital, and we officially have been Coletta Street Capital for a year as of this month, which is really exciting. Coletta Street has invested in several notes, and we have teamed up with a fund, and we are now managers of a fund, or I guess co-managers of a fund, and we have about, I think, almost $2 million in properties in that fund. We just closed on, I think, 6 or 7 yesterday, and we're looking to close on 3 more today. So pretty exciting, moving forward and learning so much, something that people don't know about me. I don't know. I
don't know or don't want to say?
I don't know.
What's your big hairy goal?
Ooh, my goal.
The one you're afraid to say because you think people will laugh.
I don't know. I think I'm pretty open with my goals. I think we want to, ultimately we want it so Chris doesn't have to go back to work. We decided that we haven't announced this yet, I guess, but I took a year off of teaching, and we decided that I'm not going back this upcoming year either. So that's something new. I'm going to stick with doing the note business full time, but Chris has to go back to work. So, so our goal is to ultimately not have him have to go back to work either. So that's kind of where we are. But yeah, so that's a big announcement. I'm not going back to teaching next year.
Okay, that was a scoop. We got one already.
You got the scoop.
Okay, Pattie, tell us about yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Pattie Pett. I'm with Ader Financials. My husband actually got me hooked to mortgage notes. At first, I thought it was just his shiny new thing that he was after. But once I got into it, once I learned a little bit about it, I was hooked. So we've been investing we started off with real estate. We were doing rentals and buy and holds and everything. And then we started in the second space. We started with non-performing second mortgages, just to kind of dip our feet in and see what's going on. We loved it. We started with non-performing seconds and then moved on to non-performing first. And now we're specifically doing non-performing first mortgages. It's been a great experience because I was actually doing this full-time, and I've literally spent hours trying to learn the business, talking to people, networking, and working with everybody. Well, not everybody, but most of the big names in the industry. And it's been great. I love it. And I'm thoroughly enjoying myself here.
So what is your very audacious goal?
Similar to what Katie just shared. After a few months after, or a few years after we started investing, I went back and took up a full-time job recently. So I want to be able to, scale up this business to such a level that I wouldn't have to continue doing the full-time job. So
that 100,000, 200,000 per year? What do you think?
it kept changing.
All right. So what would surprise us about you?
I don't know.
You guys really keep secrets, I have to say. This is get it out of you.
I do have one
Mark
thing.
my words.
I do have one thing. Not many people
Okay.
know that I sing sometimes.
Ooh. Like in the
sing?
shower?
Outside the shower too.
Like karaoke?
No, I've given some concerts and stuff.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
What
like
kind of music?
Indian
Popular
classical music.
classical? I'm sorry?
Indian classical music.
Oh, wow. Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I sang in a movie in India, and
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll be watching that at the next mastermind.
Sure.
Please bring your costume.
Luckily, there's no costume.
Okay, Gail, you're up.
Good morning. So let's see, how long have I been doing notes? I started last year. Prior to that, I was doing fix and flips for many, many years, very successful. I'm a licensed real estate agent, been an agent since '84, but the market changed. So when everybody was zigging towards overbidding on rehabs, I decided to zag into notes. And I looked at performing and non-performing. I took quite a few classes in performing notes, and then I decided that non-performing notes were more exciting. So I jumped into that. And during one of my note meetups here in Central Florida, I met a Scott Carson student who said, he was doing things. So I said, well, I want to go ahead and do that. So I started training under Scott and haven't looked back. I've just absolutely loved it. It's
Awesome.
How many notes we just closed on our 8th note the other day.
Wonderful.
So I went from 0 to, I joke and say 0 to 17,500 miles an hour. That's what you need to do to achieve orbit. So
like a space program. Right, exactly. So I think that might probably be the thing that people would be most interested to know about you, that you work for NASA, and what did you do for them? I understand you single-handedly put a man on the moon. Is that
No, not quite. It's actually a cast of about 20,000 people that used to fly the shuttles. I started in 1991 with NASA, and very proud of the fact that I helped to build space station. I was in the environmental office, and I used to actually fuel the rockets until the shuttle program ended, and then they put me in the safety office, and the contractors are taking over, which is good, and that's fine. But I decided to go ahead and put in my retirement, and I retired. And I had to pick a date, so April Fool's Day seemed like the perfect day, and that's when I left after 26 years.
So was that just last month, you mean?
Oh, no, 13 months ago. Yeah, it's been a year already. So I immediately started working in real estate, doing rehabs. I have a portfolio that we hold right now. So
you had a year to bum around in real estate, and now you're...
Well, actually, it was the shortest retirement on record, because Friday I retired. Saturday we had to move the property or the furniture out of one of our rentals because I signed a lease purchase on it. Sunday I rested. Monday I got back into notes.
Okay, that sounds like a classic.
It was a 24-hour retirement.
Yeah, exactly. So what's your big, audacious, hairy goal?
Well, right now, my husband and I and granddaughter have a 33-foot sailboat, and unfortunately I blew my shoulder out on it. So after years and years of sailing, I'm going to be constantly susceptible to injuries. So we decided to change our 33-foot sailboat into a 31-foot Coachman Leprechaun, and travel throughout the country. It gets pretty darn hot here in Central Florida, so we decided that we can just hole up in like the mountains because it's a very portable business. So that's my big audacious goal, and I want to try to do that. I'm so convinced that I'm going to make this successful that I've actually booked already into Fort Wilderness next March in an RV that I don't own.
Talk about holding your own feet to the fire. That sounds great.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad to be here with you ladies. I don't know how many Note conferences you've been to, but I have been struck all along by, you go to a Note conference and it's like 75% men usually, and the women who are there, some of them are spouses who are there being supportive and they're not really active Note investors. And then there's lovely ladies like Shantae Duffy, who's there as a vendor. And so when you really get down to how many women are Note investors, it seems tiny. So my first question to you is, why do you think that is? If women are 50% of the population, why are they 15 or 20% of Note investors? And along with that, why are you different so that you're doing it and other people aren't?
I could say, I think it's our society and the way we're raised as girls, honestly, what girls are pushed into. And if you look back, like our parents' generation, like women were never taught the finances. It was the man's job, I feel like, in a lot of cases. And most women, I don't want to say all, I don't want to, generalize here, but a lot of women allow the man to be the supportive role and to be, to deal with the finances. And I was that woman. I let Chris do everything. And he's like, we're going to invest in this. I'm like, okay, I trust you, and it kind of, whatever you say, babe. And it kind of, when he got the orders to deploy, it kind of put a lot on us, for the sense that I don't even know if I knew our bank account login, information. I didn't know, it was simple things like that I was like, you're going to be going to Kuwait for 10 and a half months. And I don't know anything about our finances. And we talked and we have a budget and everything like that, but I never logged in.
A year ago when he deployed, that you were at that level of not knowing anything? Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh, I had nothing to do with investments. Yeah. I was a teacher and Chris managed our finances. He did everything and he did a wonderful job. And he always talked to me about investments and always talked to me about, and we chose to do it, but I was more like me trusting him. And then he asked me to do this with him back in May, so a year ago. So I've been doing notes for a total of a year. I've been actively investing for a year now. And I've been learning a lot. And so, but I feel like it took Chris saying, hey, Katie, let's do this together. Come to me to fast track and I was like a deer in the headlight, the whole fast track. But I think it took him asking me to be part of this. And he and I were talking last night about how much he loves that I'm a part of it with him, that he knows so many other Note investors whose wives aren't, and they really like the fact that we are a team, that we're doing it together. Yeah. And that they wish their wives did it with them, Yeah. So I think that's a lot of it. A lot of women, I think, just allow the husband to do it.
Yeah, I have the opposite problem. My husband doesn't want to come anywhere near this. He's the pretty one. Like, oh, no.
I trust you. I trust you, Gail. You can have my money.
Tell me when the cash truck arrives.
I know, right?
So, Pattie, you come from a traditional culture where women are not necessarily running the show. Do you think, it is a cultural thing about women and roles?
Probably not so much culture, but like Katie said, we're not used to participating on the financial part of things. In my family, especially my mom and dad, similar to what Katie said, they would sit down together once a month, kind of go over the finances and decide where they're putting their money, investing together, and that kind of thing. So we did have a little bit of that. My dad was regularly investing in real estate, so I always had an inclination for that. And when I got married, my husband was similar. We used to sit down and talk about, and he was the more active investor. He would go out and read up about everything there is, stocks, bonds, and the usual stuff, and then tax liens and basically everything. So he would educate himself first, and he would come home and discuss that with me. And he's like, you know what, I came across this one, let's do this, or this is what I'm thinking. And then that would kind of add to other discussions. The thing I think from what I've seen, like you said, I see most of them in the role of vendor, or I think I see a lot of women realtors. I don't know if this has been your experience. So when we do our marketing, I think I try to focus a little bit on that. And I say, hey, you don't actually have to go house to house, and you don't have to take up so much work. There is a way to passively invest and make much more money in this field. So that's part of my education or marketing strategy, where I try to educate other women about this field and how much, I wouldn't say less work, but I would say less physical work this involves.
Yeah, I think women tend to be realtors because that's like a real people, we're people, and we're helpers. We want, see people.
Yeah, that's interesting
tucked away into their nice little houses and their little nests. Go ahead, Gail.
I'm sorry. That's really interesting to hear Pattie and Katie's take on it. I'm obviously a little bit older than they are, but I had the opposite effect. My dad and uncle owned real estate offices out in San Francisco, so I started being a person that they looked to clean their rentals and everything and paint them and get them ready. So I guess rehabbing had been in my blood for a very long time. Awesome. I see that in real estate, being a traditional realtor, that there are a lot more women, and it seems that people will trust us to help them find their nest, if you will. That's in the traditional side. I saw more commercial agents as on the male side. Right. But I think in general, the note industry and the note space itself, I heard Scott tell us there's only like 4,000 note investors throughout the entire United States. So it may seem that there's more, I don't know, I see it as a mix, with half and half. Maybe that's just the events that I've been to. Maybe it leans more towards the male side. But it also looks like, from my perspective, that as far as my personal experience, my husband has absolutely nothing to do with investments. He has absolutely nothing to do with the money. My mom and sister both died when I was very young, so I ended up striking out on my own when I was only about 16. So I grew up having to make sure that my finances were in order and everything. So when it came down to finding our properties and finding that, I kind of said, just sign this, trust me on this one. And when I got into notes, he fully understood why, because he was out there estimating our jobs and there weren't any jobs to estimate. Right. So now with the notes, he listens, he hears these things and he's like, man, your learning curve is like, and I'm like, yes, it is. But
probably be a rocket scientist. You have to be kind of good at learning things.
Yeah, so go ahead and sign this one because this is your note now. So
you got kind of the same dynamic I've got going on. Like, it's okay, honey, I'll figure it out.
Exactly.
So yeah, I just kind of
4 of us and 2 of us do that, 2 don't. So
yeah. I don't know if it's a gender. I wouldn't say it's a gender thing. I think it's more of a personality versus and how you were raised, and what you were exposed to when you were younger too.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, I actually heard a very interesting talk recently about how, girls at a young age get the most positive attention, for being good students, for being, well-behaved and all these things. And when they reach adolescence and that need that you have for acceptance and to feel valued is sort of peaking, that girls become very, very risk averse. Like they don't want to step over the line at all. And it becomes kind of a habituated behavior to not take risks. And so then you become an adult and you have to almost make a conscious decision to break out of that programming. And I certainly felt it. And actually, Gail and I are going to be doing a podcast next Thursday about blockages. And the ones that interest me the most are the ones that I've identified in myself that I never understood were there. I'm the kind of person, you're all very conscientious, hardworking, detail-oriented women who, really look at a deal before you make a decision to jump in. I was that way too. And I always thought, that idea of analysis paralysis, that wasn't real, that I was really just doing what I should be doing to make sure everything is perfect. But, you know, at a certain point when you are unable to make a decision that you know enough and it's now time to do something, you know, you have to start asking yourself what is really going on with me? This isn't about being cautious. This is about being, you know, too scared to make a move.
Well, it's always good to have the data so that you can analyze it. You know, I come from a analytical type of mindset here, but there gets to be a point where you have enough data to make a decision. Now, do you keep asking for more data, or do you go ahead and say done is better than perfect? You know? Yeah,
exactly. I think the biggest problem is that people don't recognize this. They feel whatever they feel is reasonable, and they don't say to themselves, like, wait a minute, you know, am I being a little too crazy here? So I actually want to just kind of stop a second, because ever since Katie said she's involved with a fund, I think we've all been like, fund? How does that work exactly? So let's just take a complete break for a moment from this conversation about women, which we will continue, and just ask Katie, like, what's that all about, Katie?
Okay. So a friend of ours who is a fellow note investor and actually got us into this, started a fund, and he asked us to help manage it. And so we are now part of the managing. So we didn't set up the fund. We didn't start the fund. So I don't have a lot of details about that aspect of it. But it is a closed fund. So we have the money already there in the fund.
A closed fund means that you raise all the money and then that's it.
It goes in and then it's closed. And we were talking, like, I've been talking to them about, you know, because what happens when you spend all that money? Where do you go? Because you can't get more money to put into that fund. Right. And so that's been a conversation we've been having about either starting another fund, because you can't bring more money into a closed fund. What's nice about a closed fund versus an open fund is it's cleaner, in the sense all the money goes in and everyone gets the equal shares based on how much money they put in. Or if you have an open fund, new money's coming in constantly and you're having to figure out how to pay each person differently, and how, you know, what property was purchased before they put their money in and everything like that. So it gets a little
that sounds really. So what are your particular duties, you and Chris, in terms of this fund? What do you actually do?
So it's nice because there's three of us, so we all kind of take on different roles. My role is more on the due diligence side, and so so that's been my really big focus, is when we get the tape in, really focusing in on doing the due diligence and that kind of stuff. Don't forget to smile. I'm like, what's happening here?
Just gave us a message not to have resting bitch faces here.
Yes. Always smile.
We're listening to Katie and kind of drooling a little bit.
So it's nice because you don't have to stress about going and finding a JV partner or finding funds.
Yeah, totally.
You already have the funds there. So, and you can. And what's nice about having the fund is that we have a lot of money, so we're able to get tapes that other people aren't able to get, because we're purchasing and making a lot more bids on a tape versus other people buying onesies and twosies.
So I understand that places like Rock Top, they have a minimum purchase of $2 million, but they're like scaling it up. Their minimum purchase they said is going to be $10 million.
Wow.
But I guess if you're a good buyer and you're a closer, you might be
and it's all about those relationships. And our other partner has formed some great relationships with some people that we're getting tapes in that aren't just being, you know, distributed, you know, every month to everybody on the email list. So that's been helpful too.
And Katie, did you say you're buying first non-performing?
Yes, sorry, I don't think I said that. Yes, we buy, first non-performing.
You're not investing in like REOs or other real estate with us?
No, we're not. And we do some condos. Our other partner, he's comfortable with condos and stuff like that because he's done more of those. But we do try to stick to single family residence.
And your fund gives a preferred interest? Is that how it works for the investors?
I'm not on that part of it. I'm in the part where I'm like doing the due diligence and we're deciding whether to purchase and looking at the ROIs and everything like that, and how it's. Sorry.
Katie, I have a question about your fund. Is it only with accredited investors?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
We have another question asking Pattie, what is the movie title of the
Oh, no.
Netflix, here we come.
That was almost 10 years ago. So
I'm sure it's out there, Patty. We'll find
Yeah, I
it.
was going to say.
We'll find it.
Are you on IMDb? Can we look you up?
No, I'm not that famous, no. No.
All
I should
righty.
have an agent, right? Yeah.
What's that?
I should get an agent. They'll probably create an agent.
You
They'll
might
promote you.
on this podcast. Someone will see you and they'll want to rep you. So, back to what we were talking about. So my next question is, do you ladies think that there's any advantage to being a woman in this business?
Ooh.
And I might just
Definitely.
burst on that. I actually thought there would be. So Patty said yesterday on her webinar that she was excited to be in this business because she thought a lot about helping people and being kind, and that was really important. And I definitely have that motivation too. My entire motivation to build wealth is to not just secure my own existence, and help my family, of course, but also to be a philanthropist. So it's been really like a delightful surprise to me to find out that I feel like I'm already being a philanthropist with some of my borrowers. And it's very gratifying. I actually got a call this morning from a borrower. And, it's so great when I have a lot of great borrowers. Most of my borrowers are women, which I find really interesting, either young single mothers or widowed or divorced older women. So I feel like there's kind of a natural rapport there, and that is helpful. But the kind of the helping thing, like I remember when I first started doing this, I have a friend locally who's a note investor, and he said to me, I was asking him, like, what is your process when you get a note? And he's like, well, I just start legal immediately with anyone. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Cool.
And, that sounded terrible. But now 2 years in, I'm starting to think like that's not such a crazy idea.
No, it's not.
Because if people are, if people are going to, make deals with you and be reasonable and, starting legal just sort of brings them to you a little faster. And it doesn't mean that you have to go through with it. But
Right.
Yeah.
I want to say also too that I feel like in my relationships with the people that we work with, like I never really thought about this, but I know things about the people that we work with that it seems like other people don't know, even people who've known them longer. So just as an example, so Franco Borelli, who is an attorney in Ohio that a lot of us use, I happen to know that he has 5 kids, and every summer he takes a big extended family camping trip in upstate PA. And he just bought a 10-person tent, and it's not because they're planning to have more kids. Gathers everyone in. And I know that John Keith does very beautiful woodworking projects using like reclaimed barn wood. And so like, they're awesome. So I just saw like, I don't know, I have a natural curiosity and interest in people that, I mean, I can't say that it's really gotten me anything extra or whatever, but it certainly makes the business fun, I think.
I bet it has, because you probably have their personal cell phone numbers so that you can call them at certain points. I feel like
let me look.
Okay. But I think like they would respond to you faster than someone they don't really know, where you've built up those relationships and you don't just care about using them for their business, but them as a person and who they are. So I think it does help you.
And when it comes to borrowers, like you said, I think, I don't mean to be sexist and cause any controversy here, but I think as women, we do have that certain nurturing quality in us, the empathy, the ability to empathize with the borrower and kind of understand their hardships. And I think that certainly adds to the conversation when we're talking to the borrowers. It kind of helps understand their situation a little bit better. And I feel like it helps me be more creative in what kind of solutions I can offer to them. When I'm having those conversations, I'm like, okay, you know what, if this doesn't work out, can you do this? Can you do that? How do you feel about doing this kind of thing? So I think the way we women talk to them or connect with them is kind of different. And it doesn't have to be a woman on the other end. It could be a man, but the borrower that we're talking to. It certainly helped, and I felt like I had built a relationship with the borrowers when I was working with them, and it kind of helped them understand that I was here to help them, and I was not this big bank trying to take away their home and kind of throw them on the street. So,
yeah, I would say actually recently I have a borrower that I've been friendly to, and now I feel like she's really using the fact that I'm not scary to make me the last person she pays. Like, I don't know which bill she's paying. She's not paying mine. And I had to actually get tough with her, which felt like, that's not how I wanted it to go. But I'm like an abuser. Don't make me be mean to you.
Yeah, no, I call it the mom love. When your kids are nice, you want them to be nice and to be happy, but then if they're not behaving in an appropriate way, you do want to step in and bring them back in. So
your creativity comment, Pattie, really puts me in mind, like, in brain science, women have a thicker cord connecting the two hemispheres of their brain. And because of that, there's a better information flow, which is supposedly really allows you to be more complex thinking, better problem solver. I don't know if any of you ever saw that show Defending the Caveman, but he also talks about how if you look at Aboriginal indigenous tribes, the men, their role in the tribe is to hunt. So their survival depends on them being able to see one animal in the distance and then see nothing else, just go for the animal. Whereas the women are scanning the entire landscape, like, what can we gather? What's that? What can we put together?
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you talk about the analytical side, Gail, that brings me to the other side of the equation. On the one side, we're nicer, we're softer, we're kind of empathetic with the borrower. And on the other side, when things go awry, we would want to step in, and we do take action, and we do have, especially, I don't know if it's because of my engineering background, but I do have an analytical mind where I'm looking at the numbers, trying to understand the numbers and make sense of them. Because at the end of the day, my investor also needs to be happy with what we're getting. I think we are able to manage a perfect balance, being the nurturer and the gatherer, like you said, and a little bit of provide a little bit of framework for all of this. So I think that's what's great about this particular note industry, that it allows us to be a woman, and we don't have to act like a man to be in this business. We can be ourselves, and we can still make profits. We can still make everybody happy.
Yeah, that's a good point. There are a lot of businesses where, the successful woman is the one who acts the most like a man. And I don't feel like that's the ticket for entry here.
Right. We have a question on the Facebook page. What is, I guess it's addressed to all of us. What has been your biggest challenge as a note investor?
As a note investor.
Alrighty. Yeah, I was going to suggest that we kind of tell some crazy stories about things that have happened to us. Does anyone? I don't really have a thought about what's been the biggest challenge. To me, it was always like everything, just trying to, particularly when you learn from Scott, it's the challenge that he presents all of us with is to be, great marketers right out of the gate, be great, investor relations people, great due diligence people, really good
at everything.
Evaluate. Yeah, there's no crying in notes, and there's no place for mediocrity on the team. So I think it's really hard to figure out when you're new, especially, just what to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I find that having a work-life balance is a little bit of a challenge. My daughter died a few years ago, so I have a 9-year-old. So trying to find, I still juggle that work-life balance. If it was just me, still, it'd be no big deal. I could do what I need to. But we all have to remember that good is done is better than perfect. So That's what I strive for.
Well, when you have that that RV that you want, you're gonna have to take her out of school and just do the anti-MAME thing and just travel and
Well, she did ask me if I would homeschool her, and she has a lot of her attributes, so that would be a no. So yeah, we'll work around school schedules and things like that. No big deal.
That's great.
Yeah, well, maybe since you're a full-time note investor, your husband would be the one to homeschool her, and that would work. No?
That would be a bigger no.
Okay, not happening.
But I think, yeah, I do relate to the work-life balance thing a little bit. I think especially because I am right now back with a full-time job, and I am investing. So earlier, not investing used to be my full-time job. I used to send the kids out the door, send my husband out the door at like 7 a.m., just sit down in front of the computer and go until 5 p.m. until I have to go pick up the kids again. So I would literally put in all those hours and then take a short break, do dinner and everything, and then get back on the computer again that night, because Scott would be online most Mondays, and then all these other webinars going on, and I used to host a few webinars myself. I used to talk to all these investors. I had to schedule time to talk to the banks. I would cold call so many banks every day. So the time blocking certainly helped me a little bit with that. Where I would say, okay, Monday, I'm just doing bills for the most part, unless something really urgent pops up and I have to take care of that part. Tuesday afternoons are solely dedicated to calling banks. So that kind of thing. So I kind of managed that a little bit using time blocking strategies. And my husband definitely stepped up. He is taking care of most of the things in the house now, especially because I don't have that 8-hour chunk of time anymore to do all of this. So sometimes when I'm calling banks, I'm doing that in the restroom during lunchtime. Nobody's using this room now. But yeah, it's a challenge, and certainly something that takes a lot of effort initially, at least until we figure out how to plan the entire thing and plan our day better.
I think for me also, like, the challenge was to understand you know, that this is a business that runs on metrics, and if you create goals, you have to have a way of measuring your progress towards them. And it was sort of a big breakthrough for me. I mean, like everyone else at the beginning, I was just sort of buying whatever looked good and just, you know, always trying to maintain a standard for what the ROI would be. So I wasn't just buying anything. Yeah, just to buy something.
Just to buy. Don't buy to buy, people. Don't just buy to buy.
Oh God, yeah, lots of buy to buy.
People are right now because things are getting eaten up at horrible prices, and people are just buying to buy.
There's a major like hate movement underway for people who buy to buy because I know Dave Putz says this all the time. Like these newbies, it's like in flipping, they don't know what they're doing. They're paying too much, and they're making the prices go up for everybody. So well, sorry, Dave, we can't just eliminate all those people. So you're just going to have to figure out, you know.
Well, as soon as they start a television show about note buying, like they have the fix and flip ones and all that other stuff, yeah, that's going to change.
Thank God it's not visual. There's nothing to look at. You know, we're not knocking down walls, so maybe it won't happen. But I understand that actually Mark Gold tried to pitch a show at one time. Like that. Ask Scott to tell you the story. But just continuing with the metrics I do, like I know right now sitting here that the average ROI in my portfolio, I have 40 notes, is 24%. And that means that I have ones that are 46% and the probably lowest is 21%. But what 24% means is that for every $1,000 I invest, I get $20 of income every month. So now if I have an income goal for the month, and I do, I just have to do the math about how many thousands of dollars I have to get invested. And if it's IRA money, I need half as much than if it's, you know, JV and I'm getting half the deal. So that's a really interesting kind of breakthrough for me. That was, I guess the first time I felt like I was being really strategic in my business and not just sort of floating along and whatever happens, happens. So I wanted to ask you guys to tell some stories, like if anyone has a crazy, interesting, funny, or just particularly good nugget story. I will start because I had something happen to me this week for the first time. And I bought I just think it's really valuable that people know this. So in March, I bought a contract for deed in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. And once it was boarded, the borrower got in touch, and she was about 9 months behind, and she immediately made almost 3 months. She made a payment that represented almost 3 months. So, already I'm loving this borrower. I'm all about her. She can come for Thanksgiving, whatever. And so she called me the other day and she said, I made some payments to the previous servicer, and I'm not seeing that reflected in my statement. So she's like, could you please call Pam? So, yesterday, I think, going back to men versus women, men might be a little bit more, I don't mean to be unfair, but like, oh, Pam, sure, I'll call Pam. But I called Pam, what the hell? So Pam tells me that on March 30th, indeed, this woman made 6 payments. She paid $2,600.
Wow.
And on March 30th. And I go back and look at my paperwork, and hey, guess what? I bought it on March 26th. So I'm like, wow. And I said to the servicing lady, I said, oh, you should be transferring that money to my new servicer. And she goes, oh, no, we don't do it that way. We credited it against her balance. And I would say, yeah, that's fine, but
money comes
to give me the money. So how about it? Let's get a move on here. And she actually, this turned into a big hoo-ha on the phone, and she escalated me to like the head of the office there, the office manager. And, he was very reluctant to agree that was my money. And he was like, I'm going to have to do some research. I was like, I'll save you the trouble. Here is my bill of sale, my wire confirmation. And okay. Yeah. So this morning I got an email from him. It's like, okay, I agree that it's your money. We just,
nice.
We just have to wring it out of somewhere. But I thought, would those people ever have said anything? Like there was nothing. It was not reported correctly to the news servicer. They weren't asking for it. If the borrower hadn't said something to me, I would not have known that money was there.
Yeah, I have a question for you. So when you say you talk to the borrower, are you talking to the borrower, or you mean the servicer?
I want to be really clear, because this came up after Note Camp 2, that like, oh, you call the borrowers. I don't call borrowers about missed payments. I call borrowers on non-collection related things at times, like taxes. Are you going to pay the taxes? Right now, everything like in many states that wasn't, if the 2017 taxes weren't paid yet, we're heading for a tax sale at this point. So it's time to find out if the borrowers have any ability to pay. I will call them about insurance also after sending forced place letters. But in this case, the borrower called me. And if the borrower calls you, you can talk to them because you're not, chasing them.
Right.
So she just called me because she was apparently with good reason concerned that she wasn't being properly credited for her payments.
Good for her for being on top of that.
Yeah. Okay, Lord. Yeah. Well, again, women. She wasn't even the name on the loan, so they had that part wrong too when the servicing transfer. So I'm getting a call from a woman. I don't know who she is. I don't know why she wants to pay for this house, and then it turns out
I'll take it
on the land contract. So I don't know why. There's always these kind of details that get lost and are so crucial. So mind the details. Excellent. So do you guys have any stories about things, funny, crazy, interesting, or informational things that happened to you?
Well, we're looking at purchasing a note in, I think, South Carolina. And we've been trying to get a realtor to go by before we actually fund it, because everything looks great from, paperwork and online and all our due diligence and all the phone calls we made. We finally got a realtor to drive by yesterday. And she sent the pictures, and she actually got up in the windows because we think it's unoccupied. And she's like, "Oh, you had squatters. There were squatters in here." So she took. So this is why it's so important. If the realtor is like finding a realtor who's willing to go and take pictures in the window if it's not occupied, because now we have more to deal with, and we actually can either fade our bid based on these and make it so, because we really like the property, but at the same time, like we're able to see the damage done. Right. So really getting that realtor who's willing. We called one, and she's like, what are the bugs that bite you? Anyways, not bed bugs, but like in the grass and stuff. She was like, I don't like going in that area because I don't want to get bitten by like in tall grass. And we're like, yeah, you're not our lady. But finding someone to, and we've been trying to really focus on realtors who also do fix and flip or who've been involved in fix and flip, and and really doing a lot more finding the realtors who have done that, because they can.
They're looking with different eyes.
Yeah, they are. And they're willing to go look up in the windows. We had one guy even just walk in the house, a different house, a realtor just walk right in and take pictures for us. So putting more effort in finding a realtor, not just a random realtor from that area, but someone who really is familiar. And
there's so many realtors who only want to sell pretty houses. And the way I try to kind of hit on better ones is on the agent finder on Zillow. It lets you search. It lets you search. There's like an advanced box, and you can select like short sale, foreclosure, things that are problems. So I want someone who doesn't have a problem with problems, like, will kind of enjoy that.
And I like Katie's point where she said she looks for realtors who have done fix and flip. So that is perfect, because then they can give you what the estimated repair costs are and what the ARV is going to be.
Sometimes they even want to buy them from you.
Yeah, or they may even have investors lined up who may be ready or looking in that area. Yeah. So that's a great point. Yeah.
So I have a friend
and they already know if you want to fix and flip it, they already have the contractors. They already know people, it's
whole team. Yeah, I have a friend who had acquired a house in North Carolina, had it sold, went to the closing, everything was great. The new owner went to move in, and there were people living there who swore that they had bought the house. And this was in North Carolina. I don't know if South Carolina is as bad, but she went through a living nightmare and legal, the legal costs and the time involved in getting these people out. And if they're living there without water, like, just think about the fact that someone can't flush a toilet, and you've got the picture. So I don't know how it is in South Carolina, but that, if you investigate, Katie, the cost for getting a squatter out of a house, because in the blue states, and I live in a blue state, in Philadelphia, when I was managing student housing in the city, if someone broke in and lived in your house, you had to go through a full ejectment procedure. And if it was sort of a career swatter who knew the rules and knew how to like get the maximum time and the maximum, it's kind of a, war of attrition. Like, they know how much it'll cost you to get them out. So, you end up offering them $10,000 just to go.
Could you imagine? What's your job? I'm a professional squatter.
It pays well and the hours are great.
Yeah, I'm just gonna hang out.
Oh, totally. So anyone else learned a hard lesson, or even a fun one?
Well, not hard, but it's kind of fun because I spent a lot of time and effort to learn how to do bind holes, fix and flips, and everything. And I have found that with statistics saying that it'll be about half the time that we're going to go ahead and have to foreclose, if that would be the case, that I have the knowledge base to be able to work both sides. And I'm finding in many of the states that I have a network of investors that I've worked with over the years, that they're ready to jump on something that is needing work. So I can wholesale it to them. I don't necessarily need to have a realtor involved because I am a realtor, but they can go ahead and buy directly from me. So I've turned into a wholesaler. And recently I had a case where somebody offered me an REO. And I was like, It's not that far from my house. I want it because I love to find houses that are junky and fix them up. That's just something I've always loved to do.
Yeah, that's like a mommy thing too. Like take an ugly, unwanted, and unloved house and make it wonderful again.
Well, I've been doing it for close to, sadly, almost 5 decades. So it's been kind of like in my DNA, I suppose, because everybody in my family does it. But the long and short of it was I wholesaled it to a wholesaler.
Oh God!
I called a wholesaler. He goes, I said, this is a reverse wholesaler. I decided to reverse engineer the whole process, and I'm calling you about this property. So there's enough meat on this bone for all of us.
Yeah, awesome.
He loves it.
That's a generous and sharing thing too. Like that strikes me as a
Gail, you mentioned
as well.
the scams that people had gone through before. That reminds me, on one of our notes, actually, there was the borrower actually thought they sold the property along with the mortgage on it, but it turned out that the person who bought it, he was based out of Florida, and he was just randomly buying houses all over the country, but he wouldn't take up the mortgage on it, so he wouldn't do the assignment or any such thing. So the mortgage was still on the borrower's name, but the property was on somebody else's name. And they actually thought they sold the house. They moved their entire family to Florida. They were living there for a few months. And then they got this notice from the court saying that they're due on their mortgage payments, and it was a notice of default. So it was a really big mess. They had to move their whole family back to Connecticut, and they were trying to figure out whose name was on it and what mortgage company currently owned it. And luckily it was us. It was the at that point, it was sold several times meanwhile, because nobody knew what was going on there. So in the end, we ended up being the lenders on the mortgage. So our first call, they actually thought we were scammers. So they were very, very about talking to us, and we kind of explained the situation. We showed them proofs where we actually done all the paperwork, legal paperwork that was required. We did the assignment of mortgage, we did the allonges and everything involved. So we were able to show proofs that we were the actual lenders on the property. So that kind of convinced them. And then they were trying to file for bankruptcy because they didn't want to go through all of this again, and they didn't want it to be a big mess. So, but then we were able to counsel them through the process, and we kind of explained that it doesn't have to be that way. We kind of looked into all the paperwork for them. So we helped them through the situation, and we figured that they actually wanted to reinstate the loan at that point, and it was a win-win for everybody. And the homeowners were so happy because they actually got to keep the home, and then we helped them make everything legal and straighten out all of those papers that got messed up over all of those years. For almost a decade, they were struggling with all of that bad paper, and everything became legal, and they were the happiest bunch.
Wow.
Great.
Yeah.
So did I just hear Scott? No. So we're actually closing on an hour here, ladies.
Wow.
The time has flown. It's been really great talking to you. I hope you viewers have gotten some good nuggets, or some at least enjoyed the hour. Thanks so much, ladies. Thank you, Scott, for giving us an opportunity to talk to your community and to represent you. And we will see you all soon.
Yes, thank you, Scott. And it was nice talking to you all again, Katie, Gail, and Gail.
Yes. It definitely was.
Yeah. I don't know if Scott's even here, so we can, just keep
Well, he's probably lurking in the background somewhere until, and enjoying.
I hope he's not Googling the movie title still.
Yeah, he's looking for you.
That's what he's doing.
Like the rest of us will be doing.
You might as well just tell us. It'll save a lot of time.
Yeah.
That would be the easiest thing, just to go and share with everybody, Patty. We'll find it. But you ladies are more than welcome. If you guys want to keep talking, go ahead, keep talking. I'm out in the background here while I'm getting some other work done here in Barcelona. So keep talking.
Barcelona.
Yeah, what are the plans for tonight, Scott, in Barcelona?
Sleep.
Yeah.
We were so jet lagged. and out of the time because it's almost 6 o'clock here now. So
they don't eat dinner till like 9 or 10.
I know.
Midnight.
Yeah, I'll probably go jump in the water here in a little bit. Steph's out for a nap, so I'll go jump in the water, come back, take a nap, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, good luck finding a meal at 6 p.m.
No, they've got some stuff rocking out here right by the hotel. So
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Very cool.
All right. Well, I actually have to go. You guys can keep talking.
Well, we'll wrap it up with that. How's that sound, ladies?
Yes.
Sounds good. Have fun, Scott.
Thanks,
Enjoy
ladies,
the
for being a big
cruise.
part of it. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be a part of the Note Closer show. And we have a couple days off, with it being Friday, everybody, episode. If you're listening online on iTunes or Stitcher and stuff like that, you'll be able to catch any of the previous episodes as well. But you guys have a great Memorial Day weekend, right? It's a longer weekend. And then you guys have guest hosts coming back in on Tuesday, if I'm correct, right?
Yes. Yep.
So enjoy y'all's weekend. Thank you guys for listening, for acting. For those who are watching on Facebook, feel free to share this post as well. Otherwise, we'll see you guys all at the top on Tuesday. Bye, everybody.
All right.
Perfect. Bye.
Bye.
Bye now.
Thank you, Scott.
Great job, ladies.
Whew.